Hi again, welcome to another edition of What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. On this week's program, the Dragon Boats will be back on Barrie's waterfront this weekend, a colorful event that raises money for local charities. It's also the start of the Canadian National Exhibition in Toronto. We'll get the rundown from the head barker. There's a village in British Columbia that's found a new way for people with dementia to continue living outside of an institutional setting. It's unique, groundbreaking, and refreshing. But first, remember Bill Welychka rose to fame on MuchMusic in the 90s, interviewing thousands of film and TV stars, politicians, and more? Haven't heard from him in some time. What's he been up to? How about writing a memoir entitled Bill Welychka, A Happy Has-Been, and stopping down to chat about it and his days in Barrie with Barrie 360's MJ.
I just want to thank you so much for taking some time to talk to me today, because you've got some really exciting things coming down the line. You've got a book that you've written, life stories, kind of all, spanning your early life and, into your career right now. What made you decide to write this book?
It sort of started when I first moved to Kingston, believe it or not. That was around 12 years ago, to work in television. I always have. And the Kingston Whig Standard, the local paper, asked me to do a monthly column on my life, and I thought, well, who's going to read this? So I said, sure. It went for 4 or 5 years, and it ended up getting syndicated across Canada, and people loved it. And then when I thought I had written enough, I was just sort of done, along came COVID, and podcasts started popping up like crazy across Canada, and I kept getting asked to doing guest spots on different people's podcasts talking about Much or the 90s or music trends or whatever. And so I started writing down stories, and then realized with the stories that I had freshly recounted and then with the Whig Standard columns, I'm just going to start writing one day. This was at the beginning of 2021 or halfway through 2021, and then about halfway through 2022 realized I think I have a book here. Just the way it was forming and with chapters. By the end of last year, I had a book and shopped it and ended up getting a publisher who could put it out this year, because I really wanted it to be released in 2023. And it's the 35th year of me being in broadcasting, and then there's a new MuchMusic documentary coming out. It just, the timing was something about this year. I really wanted it out, and it came out 2 weeks ago, and apparently it's doing really well, and it blows my mind that people want to hear stories or want to hear what I might have to say about a certain period in my life that was very exciting to me and, groundbreaking in Canadian broadcasting and pop culture. And so, yeah, the book is here and it's out, and I'm very proud of it. Really surprised that people care. Mm-hmm. And that's what blows me away.
What I love about it is, I'm a 90s kid, and so many things that you highlight in the book, and just just talking about your experiences are things that it's taking me a trip down memory lane, because there's when you're talking about the White Ribbon Campaign and the Tea Party song Release. I'm like, oh man, I love that song. And I immediately went to YouTube and started blasting it. And my kids are like, what are you listening to? So
that's the beautiful thing about nostalgia. As I was talking with someone about this today, about the decade prior, not really cool, but 2 decades prior is cool. And you can apply that to every decade. In the 90s, the 80s were laughable, but it wasn't until the 2000s came along where people had a reverence for the 80s. So I think that's what we're seeing with the 90s now. In doing a lot of interviews with artists at that time with MuchMusic and MuchMoreMusic, I was being reminded of my high school years and who I had on my jean jacket in terms of patches or buttons, and then to be able to bond with these artists years later was a perfect circle. And there's a lot of perfect circles in the book. When
you moved to Barrie, because you do have some history here, a lot of history here, it's where you discovered The Cure, and you also went through a little bit of I don't want to say emo phase, but slightly maybe, like everyone sort of does at some point.
Yeah, halfway through high school, my mom wanted to move to Barrie to retire, and those are delicate years for a teenager. And all of a sudden removed from everything that I thought I knew and loved in Thornhill, Ontario, friends, everything. Bang, make new friends, start over in school. And for a teenager, that's somewhat difficult. And so I sort of became a bit of a loner, and that's sort of when I discovered The Cure, and it was all about individuality. And so, yeah, Barrie represents a period of soul-searching for me when I was a young person. And it wasn't until my first summer in Barrie where I realized I love this city. You know, it's the perfect place to be on a hot summer day. And, yeah, my mom is buried in Barrie, and I have a friend that has a cottage in Georgian Bay, so I love stopping off in Barrie halfway up to that drive. And still keep in touch with some friends from school to this day. And it's funny about the book and doing press, hearing from some people that I went to high school with. Somehow they got a hold of me and tracked me down and sent me a message on Facebook or whatever. And beautiful things to say. What I realized writing this book, and I talk about this in the book too, is that everyone has a story. Everyone has a story worthy of a published book. Everyone has moments in their lives that are beautiful, sweet, sad, heart-wrenching, surprising, educational. You know what I mean? You have a story. Whoever's listening to this right now has a great story. I feel so fortunate that I could have a chance to tell my story, and in the process, bring back memories for some people, and also maybe share some life lessons that I've learned along the way. You
have obviously interviewed countless people, all of your heroes, you know, from all walks of life. And I have to ask you this. Is there anybody that you would still love to interview that you haven't, that's still living? Anyone that you're just like dying to, or has sort of like you checked off most of them? Lady Gaga, I think, would have been a great interview. I think Paul McCartney, I think, would be an amazing interview. I've interviewed Ringo. I've interviewed Yoko Ono, maybe the fifth Beatle. Pete Best, who replaced, or who was the Beatles' first drummer. I've interviewed John Lennon's kids. Everyone around the Beatles I seem to have interviewed, but never Paul McCartney or George Harrison, but he's no longer with us too. So, yeah, I think the big two for me would have been Paul McCartney and Lady Gaga. I remember buying the cassette of Paul McCartney's greatest hits at Sam the Record Man in Barrie at the 5 Points. I think it was a Sam's that was there back in the 80s. And do you still consider yourself the biggest music fan?
Oh, yeah. And I buy CDs still. The experience of taking off the plastic, pouring over liner notes, pouring over lyrics. That's the beautiful thing about a CD or an album. And you don't get that with streaming. And that's okay. Some people just want to hear music as a background, and I'm not going to deny them that. But for me, it's a little bit more of a deeper personal experience listening to music. You know, even though you're out of the, I guess, big national spotlight of MuchMusic, and you have been for a long time, you're still doing crazy things. You're still very much a part of television, a part of your community. Like I saw in your book, like you've done wrestling. It's just some of the fun stuff that comes with having a job in media, that you're still incredibly engaged in the community. Oh, yeah, and I always will be. I've always worked in television, and really nothing's changed in terms of being curious about people and having a chance to tell people stories or to promote certain events and charities. And, nothing's changed in that realm. Maybe the size of the audience has changed, but that's okay. I don't mind that at all. Mm-hmm. And, again, it's about connecting with the people that are available. You know, and we get back to the title of the book, Happy. I'm the happiest that I've been in, I think, in my entire career of 35 years of doing this. And I'm in a small town in eastern Ontario, or a small city. And geographically, it reminds me of Barrie. It's surrounded by water. I love that. And people are great. People care. And, I can't ask for anything more.
Big weekend on the Barrie waterfront. The Dragon Boat Festival returns, sponsored by the Barrie Public Library. As exciting to watch as it is to take part in, the library's Chris Vandercruz joining our Ian McLennan with the details and who will benefit.
What is it? When is it happening? And of course, critical component, this is a big fundraiser for the library, correct?
It is for sure. And this is actually going to be our 19th annual. Of course, we had the 2 sabbatical years. And it's hosted by the library, of course, and presented by the Tim Hortons, so our local franchisees. It's Saturday, August 19th is the day, and it's going to be a warm day and sunny and lots of water, of course, to be in.
And how many teams are involved, and what's the nature of the competition, if you like?
So as in the past, we've always had, close to 50 to 60 teams. And of course, the pandemic changed that a little bit. And now we're around just under 30. So it is coming back. Last year, we were 20. So we're doing better at getting it back into the swing of things and getting people out again. But it has about 600 paddlers come in and participate that day. And of course, lots of people come to watch and enjoy everything that we have on the waterfront.
Now, talking to people who've been involved in it previously, I mean, they almost take it like some Olympic training on here. You've got some amateurs and those that have done it actually on a regular basis.
Yeah, I know, you're right there. I mean, there are some real diehards that are out there twice a week, actually, and because our boats go in usually the end of May, and they're there right through till October. And what happens is we have the Barrie Dragon Boat Club, of course, in Barrie as well. Right. And so they go to a lot of different festivals all across Canada and elsewhere. So they are out there training all the time. There's also some teams that just build, I guess, companionship by going out on a regular basis, and they learn to work together. And I think that's the whole idea about dragon boating is, you're with 20 other people in the boat. You all have to paddle in sync and work together to achieve what you want in the end.
You better believe in teamwork.
That's correct. You better, yes.
Now, this is a fundraiser for the library, and just a bit of background for people who may not be familiar. You've got the main downtown branch, but you've got other branches located within pockets of the city. And tell us, how much was there a goal here?
So we don't necessarily ever set a goal, but realistically, even the Dragon Boat Festival, originally it was started to raise money for Painswick, which we have, of course. And now we also have Holly. So we do utilize money from our reserves, which was built from the Dragon Boat Festival. With our festival, it's sort of, you put a team in, you raise money for the charity of your choice. If it's the Barrie Public Library, that's great. If not, it may be for hospice, it may be for Grove Park, it may be for the hospital. The idea is that you are still supporting a charity within the community, and it's not all about just the Barrie Library, it's about our community as a whole. So I think that's the biggest piece. So we do get funds donated to us through the festival, as well as we usually make a little bit of money on the festival, but that goes into our reserve for future branches.
And that makes sense too, because when you talk about a library, it is community, right?
Exactly. We're all about community. We're about building community, and we're about being here for the people in a community. And
where's the best viewing point for the public to see the activity on the water?
So actually it's down at Heritage Park, and it will start I think the races actually start at 8, but we have Waking the Dragon around 7:30, and the action will start right away. So come on down that morning and enjoy the beautiful sunrise, as well as see the dragons out on the water.
And then there's some activity after the event too, a celebration?
So what it is actually during the festival, we have different things happening all day. We have the Barrie Public Library tent, and it has all different activities for kids and all ages, actually, as well as we have the memory moment, which sort of celebrates the life of those that have gone before us that may have participated even within Dragon Boat racing. And I think that's the idea, is that we're building a day of celebration, and that's what we want everybody to come and enjoy.
And I'll leave it on this note. Have you done dragon boating?
I have paddled, not in the races it's per se. I've always been sort of festival chief in some sense. And so it's all the things that happen in the background. That's what I sort of help make sure no one else notices.
And do we paddle rain and shine?
We paddle rain and shine. I mean, the only time that we haven't paddled is when we've had thunderstorms and different things. But if it's raining, you're going to get wet anyway, so it's not going to matter.
Great. Thanks very much.
Hey, thank you.
What Barrie's Talking About is a weekly podcast featuring the best Barrie and Simcoe County have to offer and more. We've covered a lot of ground since we began a year ago, learned about the Orbit Adventure in Innisfil, a proposed all-inclusive community with a GO station at its core, spoke with the author of the Sex, Drugs, and Pots and Pans cookbook about such dishes as roasted red-hot chili peppers and paradise by the oven light meatloaf, and got some insight into stiff person syndrome from a Barrie woman who is stricken with it. You can get caught up and make it easy to keep up in the future by subscribing to What Barrie's Talking About through any podcast distributor. Still to come on What Barrie's Talking About, an innovative village that offers people with dementia a better quality of life, far from the institutions many wind up in, and we find out what's new at this year's Canadian National Exhibition. Now this.
Our community rocks.
It's a well-known fact blood transfusion saves lives. It's also a well-known fact that the world relies on voluntary unpaid donations to fill the need for blood. The need for blood never ends. Canadian Blood Services in Barrie is calling on you to help save a life. Please consider donating today. Appointments are mandatory and must be booked in advance. Book today at blood.ca through the Give Blood app or by calling 1-888-2-DONATE.
Our community rocks on Barrie's Rock Station. Rock 95.
This is What Barrie's Talking About from Barrie 360. I'm Dan Blakely. Dementia, Alzheimer's disease. What do you do when a family member is diagnosed with such? It's a difficult call on so many levels, frustrating at times for all involved due to the nature of it. A retirement or long-term care home is often an option which, try as they might to make everyone comfortable, may still end in some frustration. Then there's Village Langley in British Columbia, a community developed especially for those with dementia and Alzheimer's. Elroy Jesperson, co-founder of Village Langley. Elroy, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Dan.
This appears to be one of those "why didn't I think of that" projects.
Well, I thought about it a long time, and it's different, and that often is the number one barrier, because many people don't want to be different, although we need to be. But I spent 30 years in the senior living business doing what you see when you think of the senior living business. And I realized that as hard as we tried to make a good life for all of the people who lived with us, there was one group of people that we really struggled with, and it was people living with dementia. And so I began to think, well, what could we do? And so I explored what other people were doing in Europe, in the States, and my thinking turned to, we need to create a unique little village where people can live in their homes, they can move about as they want, they can engage in life, and they can decide what to do when they want to do it. And so that's where my thinking came to. And at the end of the day, the Village Langley came about with the help of many, many creative people.
There's a general store, a cafe, a bistro, a woodworking shop, a beauty salon, all the comforts of home almost.
Yeah. Well, our first criteria was to say, let's build houses where people could be at home. And so all of our houses are cottage-style, single-story, ground-level cottages where 12 villagers will live, and they will have the same 2 or 3 people, staff team support them day in and day out. And then they're able to walk out the front door without any barriers, without any locks, without any steps, and move around the village. And it's on 7 acres, so we have a lot of paths and interesting places for them to go and see and check out. And again, we focus on, one of our principles is embrace normal. So we try to make life as normal as it can be in an environment that many people can relate to.
It's almost like a gated community, but the people who are living there don't know that.
Right. We have 7 acres, and it's a well-treed property with residential on 2 sides, and then a creek and whatnot running down, and the other sides of it. And we have 8-foot-high fences with shrubs and flowers and stuff in front, so you can walk through there and you don't even realize that there's a fence there that might keep you from going right instead of left.
And I talked about the frustration in people for people who have dementia, frustration for the families, I suppose, frustration for the workers who are helping them as well. Then some of that is still there, but it's dealt with in a different manner, isn't it?
Right. I mean, I think more than one of us have heard when we're upset, somebody would say, "Hey, why don't you go take a walk and cool off?" Well, guess what? At the village, they can. In other words, if somebody is frustrated, you're not confined, you're not told to sit down or go to your room, you can go and do something. You can be engaged in something you want to do. And so I personally believe that a lot of the behaviors that one might associate with somebody living with dementia are the result, not of the disease, but of the frustration. Because when I look at myself in that situation, I would be frustrated too, and I would be upset and want to strike out or yell or say whatever. So I think we're able to allow people to have the space to do what they want when they want.
Do you have any notion as to how this has changed life for somebody with dementia? Has it prolonged their life and their memory because they've been able to still move on with their lives? We have no data, nor do I really think it necessarily prolongs somebody's life with dementia, because there is no, at this point, cure for dementia. What I see is a whole lot of villagers smiling, engaged in life, family members who are happy and engaged with their loved one, not as a care partner, but as a spouse or a child. So it creates this more normal relationship. And I've had people say, it feels so nice here and so relaxed and so calm. And I can guarantee you that is not what most people say when they visit a dementia unit somewhere. It must be a tremendous relief for the families of somebody with dementia to know that they're in that kind of an environment and essentially thriving.
Absolutely. Well, that's part of our mission, is to create this environment where people flourish and thrive.
How many arms did you have to twist, and how far did you have to twist them to get this off the ground?
Well, I didn't have to twist too hard, because we had a small group of investors who had invested in other projects that we had done. And when I started talking about what could be, they really became excited and said, okay, we're in. And that gave us the equity to start this. Now, we knew that if we went to the government and wanted the government to help us do this, we would still be talking about stuff. So we just did it, and that was part of our purpose, is to demonstrate a better way to do to support people living with dementia. Because I would talk about this before we started, and people say, "Oh, that sounds great. Where can I look at one?" And I'd say, "Well, you can't, because it hasn't been done yet." So we said we just have to do it so that people can come and actually see it in operation, can see the impact it has on the people living there. And so we've had people literally come from around the world to look at the village. We're talking to researchers to come in and do some research so that we can have some definitive data on the impact of the environment the village has on a person's life. But I was fortunate in that, I mean, the idea and the concept makes so much sense that why wouldn't you do it? You know, it's just that if you look at things through a certain lens, through regulation, through risk aversion, you say, oh, that's not a good thing to do. But if you look at things through the life of enriched living and living your own best life, then, hey, there's a whole lot of things one can do.
If people want more information about Village Langley, where do they turn for that?
Well, they can go. The Village Langley, we have a website. If they just Google the Village Langley, we're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all of the usual social media sites, and they can find all sorts of information.
Elroy, thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for you for what you've done for the families of people with dementia and the people who have dementia themselves. This is just fantastic.
Well, thank you for your interest.
Gates open at the Canadian National Exhibition, the CNE, the X, on the 18th for its annual run through Labor Day. I'm joined by Daryl Brown, CEO of the CNE. Welcome to What Barrie's Talking About.
Hey, thank you for the invite.
As a kid growing up in Toronto, I never missed going to the X. Went with my dad and my brothers when I was really young, then with my friends in my teens, and then with my kids when they were younger, but I couldn't tell you the last time I was there. So tell me why I want to get my butt down there this year.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of people who want to get their butts down here. We're up 60% in advance ticket sales over last year, and we're up over 100% from 2019. So people want to come. We try and do a nice mix of things, and we're always looking to innovate. We've got an 18-day gaming garage that's now being sponsored by Intel this year. It used to be sponsored by AMD. That's just a lot of fun in itself. There's competitions there, but there's also new innovations and some pretty high-tech things to explore. We've got something on the outside this year, which is going to help people cool off on a real hot day, but still have some fun in the midway. It's a 150-foot super wheel. It's going to have enclosed air-conditioned cabins that can house 4 to 6 people at a time. So, you can rotate up to the top of that, see all of what's happening at the CNE, and see the Toronto cityscape and be cool all the while. So, that'll be fun. And we've added 25 more drones to our nightly drone show. So there'll be 100 drones going up this year, if the wind cooperates, because if we hit 40 kilometers of wind, we can't put them up. But so, people really liked that last year. And we're doing something new on the water, too. We have what are really dancing fountains that'll shoot up 100 feet into the air to music, and it'll be especially cool in the night because there'll be laser lighting reflecting off of all of the design and music accompaniments. So that's something to get a little breeze off the water and see what's happening down there. So lots of things to talk about.
I know I mentioned my kids and going as a kid, and do you find a lot of people think of the X as a place just to take the kids? I know there's a lot of adult things to do, and there always have been, but do you have that misconception sometimes you have to fight through?
Well, it's interesting. We contract with Enigma Research to independently assess some things for us. They do the economic impact assessment, but they also look at preferences. And 78% of the people that come to the X say their prime destination is the food building.
Yeah.
So food is a really big deal for a lot of people. I think it varies depending on where you are in your life. The Kids World thing is great when you have little kids, and also the smaller rides for the younger kids as well. But people want to do different things because some people come for the band show and just walk to hear the music. We've got some really interesting stuff in the Intercare Center. There's we call it a trip through 103, which it's almost like being on a high without the drugs. It's this translucent webbing with again projected designs that are immersive, but also to music, and it's really kind of another place to chill out and have some fun. So I think it depends on the person. If you're a gamer, you're going to go to the gaming garage. If you like some of the tribute bands, you'll go to the midway stage. But then maybe you want to see, William Prince or the Sheepdogs or Dionne Warwick. So it varies depending on the person.
Now, I remember when going with my dad when I was a kid, he would drag us into the Better Living building, but that's where you saw all the new innovative things going on. It didn't interest me then, but it would interest me now.
Yeah, so we're still doing that. We had something called the Innovation Garage, which were pitch competitions for new inventions, and we sort of rolled the Innovation Garage into the gaming garage. But we're still doing that. We have new concepts coming out, and we're also doing some innovative things ourselves. It won't be part of this fair per se, but we are developing a metaverse platform. So people are going to be able to get their avatars and come to the X in different ways virtually. So we're looking at what the technology has to offer and going with that. Some of our sponsors, for example, we had VinFast last year, which is a Vietnamese company that is into the EV market. We've got other EV early research designs that are going to be on display, and we even have Bombardier coming down with their newest model jets. So, I think the innovation side of what we were always regarded historically as a showcase of the nation, and we're still trying to feed into that each year.
You've also have a skating show this year with Elvis Stoico.
Yeah, well, that's another one of those things. If there was a repeated message to us, because the last time we had a skating show was 4 years ago, people wanted it back. And again, it's another opportunity if you're owed and it's a hot day to go into the Coliseum and to see Elvis and the entourage put on a fantastic skating performance. And we, of course, usually have some acrobatics rolled in with it. The theme this year is the music over the decades, so that'll be entertaining in itself. That'll be a lot of fun.
All right, lots more happening as well. We can't get into all of it here, of course, but if people want more information before they decide to go down, where do they find that?
Well, go to thex.com, and if you want to come down, you save a lot of money if you buy early. So, and for kids, they can log on and get free passes as well through we distribute to the 1.2 million free passes through the school board. So, and you can access those online. But do buy early and you pay less.
I think I might make the trip this year, Daryl.
Hey, I'd love to see you down here.
Thanks so much for this today, and have a blast.
Hey, thank you.
And that's our program for this week. Thanks to Ian and MJ for their input, to Matt Ladder for his technical expertise, and to you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to What Barrie's Talking About, rate it, review it. You can also keep up with What Barrie's Talking About on X at Barrie360, on our website, Barrie360.com, and on our daily Kickstart podcast, available from any streaming service and on our website. I'm Dan Blakely. Hope you'll join us again next week.